I started my professional career as a registered respiratory therapist, and that was during my use of drugs. And I left the field because I thought my job was making me kind of crazy, and I went to work for my dad in a family business. And we did hire people in recovery because at some point working for my dad, I went into treatment and I found my recovery from substance use disorder in 1982. So I've been in recovery for 40 years. So I'm very passionate about helping people with disabilities because substance use disorder is a disability, but also our returning citizens and, you know, obviously people in recovery, because I can tell you that my recovery has allowed me to grow, to have many careers. But each career that I've had has been a better one. It has helped more people and it has helped me. So, and I'm very aware of the challenges in Volusia County and Flagler with building a workforce. And so I'm really honored to be here. It is a privilege. So after hearing about the available labor force and with all of our experience as business and hiring professionals, we all know that we need to consider ways to expand the pool of candidates. I would like to ask each of our panelists to give a brief introduction of who you work for, your role, and what brought you here today as a member of this panel. So I'd like to start with one of the Volusia Recovery Board members, Liam Sweeney.
Good morning. Is this on? Good morning. My name is Liam Sweeney. I work for the Neighborhood Center of West Volusia. I am currently the director of what is known as The Bridge, which is our low barrier shelter. We are located over in DeLand. I was tricked. That's how I ended up here. I opened the wrong email apparently. And so what else am I supposed to say? That's good enough. Yeah. I also sit on Karen's board. So that's it.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
You stuck me next to a major. I hate to my spec force, I don't know.
So actually,
and the comedian.
Now we will go to former Major Jordan White. Thank you for your service. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Jordan White, Director of People Support for the Daytona Beach Hilton Oceanfront Resort. What brought me here is I always enjoy contributing to our society, to help other businesses. We're all in this together. We're all having the same challenges, but we also can learn from each other. My responsibilities at the hotel are related mostly to talent acquisition, benefits, compensation, and employee relations. And thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. And next we have Bryan Clyborne.
I'm Bryan Clyborne. I work for Yellowstone Landscape as a business development manager. And the reason I'm here is I myself have been in recovery for almost 13 years, and I think it's important to release the stigma around hiring people in recovery because there are hidden talents. And as somebody said earlier, you may not know that you have somebody in recovery that works for you, but you know, being in recovery has allowed me to be a productive member of society and, you know, have the career that I have today.
And next we have G. Watts.
Thank you. My name is W.G. Watts. I work for Halifax Hospital in the earlier days, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Where I was a policeman, and I love helping people. So I went to Halifax, volunteered for 13 years, I believe it was, and they wanted somebody to take over as manager of volunteer services, and I accepted the job, and thank you for the invite here.
Thank you for your past service as a police officer. We're going to start this morning with a question for Jordan. Please tell us how Hilton Daytona Beach Oceanfront Resort has actively expanded its pool of candidates to include persons with disabilities.
Well, first I'd like to say that hiring people with disabilities for me started before working for Hilton. Hired people with disabilities for over 20 years, 3 different companies. One setting was in media, another setting was in healthcare contact center. At the Hilton, though, we've been able to hire at least 6 people with disabilities. What that has done, number one, it allows people to really become productive with their lives. Some persons actually have Social Security disability income. This is the way to supplement it. But more importantly, I tell all my hiring managers, it's not about their disability, it's what their ability to do for us, particularly in a market where there are certain roles, not all, but certain roles where you do not have that to prove. So that expansion has definitely helped me in our housekeeping and laundry department. It also has helped us in our food and beverage department, where there is certain high turnover in any organization that have food and beverage people.
So as a follow-up, what undue costs for job accommodations have you found, if any?
You'd be relatively surprised. Actually, very little. At the Hilton, we haven't had to have any additional costs. In my other employers, we may have spent money to purchase some software and a keyboard. That was really some years ago. In technology, we would have been purchasing software and keyboards anyway, so it wasn't additional. But now when you have speech-enabled technology, these things have come down in such lower cost, there's relatively hardly any cost there. And in one situation, we rebuilt a desk. We didn't have to go buy a new desk, it was cheaper to just rebuild it where it was. Cost has been very minimal. I do understand, though, in some instances, you can have costs, but I would dare say, when you look at the bottom line of what your company can actually earn over a period of time, it would outweigh any investment that you would make.
Thank you. So 1 in 3 adults in the United States has a criminal record. And statistically, more than 50% of formerly incarcerated individuals will remain unemployed after a year after release. So Bryan, Yellowstone Landscape has a practice of not disqualifying potential candidates due to background issues. What has helped you best when it comes to hiring returning citizens and supporting their employment success?
I think the biggest thing is that we don't turn away anyone that walks in our door asking for a job. We have signs on our trucks, we have signs at our office, we have our website letting know that we're hiring. And as far as hiring somebody that's a returning citizen, I've worked with many of them on the operations side of the business before I was in sales, and I think it's important to, Yellowstone, we cultivate a culture where you can be successful, regardless of where you come from, regardless of what you've done in the past, because I know people can change. And not only do we cultivate that kind of culture, but at the same time, we're going to hold you accountable. You're expected to, do your job and show up to work. And I think that's the other part of it, is that you got to hold everyone accountable for what they do. So, like I said, we don't turn anyone away. And I've seen people move up in the company from someone that just walks in the door up to, a crew leader and a superintendent, foreman, and things like that. So.
So companies that succeed in incorporating candidates with disabilities have seen 28% higher revenue and 2 times higher net income. The most immediate challenge for many businesses looking to advance disability inclusion is knowing where to start. So, Halifax Health has invested in creating Project Search. Can you tell us a little bit more about this program and how businesses can become a partner to increase their candidate pools?
Thank you for the question. That 7 years ago, Kim Fulcher, in charge of HR, Senior Vice President of Halifax, asked me to come down and listen to the Project Search thing. Her and I started this program 7 years ago, and I've been with it since day one, and she's been full support. And basically what we do is take them and put those kids in a rotation. Hypothetically speaking, 3 that will work dietary, 3 will work somewhere else, and 3 will work the ED, and we teach those skills, and they on a rotation basis so they can get full experience of what goes on in Halifax. I call them my children, and honestly, they are. I think if you support these people with disabilities and stuff, they will turn over twofold for you. They do so much for us. What we do is the hospital has granted me money to buy their lunches, give them $9 and that'll buy their lunches. So that's a most of them don't have two nickels to rub together, so we do what we can do to help them out. We buy them Christmas stuff and stuff like that. And I would like to say one thing. This past year, I think we had 22 or 23 in project search. All 23 were hired. And Halifax Health still has 9 working for them full time. These kids ride the bus sometimes 30 miles and from Halifax. They put in a lot of effort. And to be with a disability and come out and don't call in sick, all we're doing is giving them an opportunity to go off and make some money on their own. And we've never had a problem with any of them. And I'm so blessed that I had the chance to help out. So that's it.
Thank you. Liam Sweeney, as the director of the bridge, you work with those individuals who are in recovery, have disabilities, and are returning citizens, or have one or more of those barriers. What experiences have you had with working with businesses to help your residents gain and keep employment?
We have had amazing experiences. So we have the opportunity, because one of the other things we do at the bridge is we feed the community lunch and dinner. So, and that is all run on a volunteer basis. And most of them are businesses like Advent Health and Halifax Health. They come in and they feed. So we take that opportunity to speak to them and share our experience with them. A lot of the businesses will come to us because we are doing good in the community and ask us if we have anyone that's interested in work. We developed a program a few years ago for returning citizens. We have 12 men in that program, and I'm proud to say all 12 of them are working. So that has not been an issue. A lot of times we just have to share our experience. So like I personally speak to them, let them know that, you know, I am one of those returning people. I am also a formerly homeless veteran with substance abuse. March 1st will be 22 years. I celebrate. Plugging because I don't care on the show. And once you actually speak to them and you let them know and you introduce them to the people and they start coming around more, they reach out to us. I have several men going down Monday to a business. They got a big contract. The first thing they did was ask me if I had 10 people that could go to work. So it's been really good in our community over in Gillette.
Great, thank you. Jordan. From your extensive experience in human resources, what is the #1 way a business can make a substantial difference in their hiring practices? And what resources would you suggest for businesses just starting out hiring from this candidate pool?
So I think first of all, making sure that the leadership in your organization is willing to have an open mind, have that dialogue before you can attempt to start the program, so that you also can get their buy-in. Because the people in this room, you may believe in the things we're saying, you may want to do it, but if your leadership team is not supportive of that, it will not be successful. So that's the first thing. #2, check with your legal counsel or your HR department head so that you can develop a strategy of how you want to go about this process. You definitely want to make sure that you're in your legal realms of everything that you're doing. Just an example, I work with one organization, SMA Healthcare. We have a relationship with people returning from incarceration. Typically, if I'm making an offer to someone, I'm going to make that offer contingent upon them passing a background and reference check. But with this organization, and through talking with my legal counsel, I made it very clear that we're going to need to have a conversation with the organization about the background of people that we would potentially hire. Knowing I'll get that information after the fact, but the reason I was doing that, #1, I work in a place who deal with the public. While we are willing to hire people who have a felony background, what I will not be hiring at that particular organization is anyone who had issues with felonies involving youth. We're not going to put our business at risk like that. In another company I've worked for, it would have been perfectly okay because they were all adults. Having said that, I want to do that so when we go through the interview process, because we take them through the same process we do with everyone, and once that background check comes back, we want to make sure it matches what they've said. We also want to make sure that we can figure out where there's going to be the best fit. So that's just one example in that particular arena. When you talk about other resources, while so many employ you, Progress and Abilities, Department of Corrections, Department of Florida with Disabilities, the Blind Services, there are a lot of services out there, but even with the community, and not even necessarily nonprofits that help those particular people. I do have to give a shout out to Michelle Brown, who I know is in the room. She's a true leader for every business here in Volusia, Flagler County. I can even call Michelle and she will do searches or tell me about people. Faith-based organizations. I leave no stone unturned. When you're shopping, I tell all our employees as well, everyone is a recruiter. But letting that people know that you have an interest, and as you also are hiring the people, the word, it does get around very quickly, trust me. I literally have started receiving phone calls from people who are actually incarcerated, and Dr. J, you have to help me here. What is that message when you get that call and it says, are you going to accept this call from something corrections? I'm like, I didn't even get my phone nervous. Having said that, I will answer that call though, because as I already said, people do deserve a second chance. I have a great general manager who really all about everyone needs a second chance. And I've even told hiring managers, you know, we have people that may be working here that yes, they passed our background check, but we don't know necessarily what they've done since they've been here. You know, maybe when they called out that Monday to PTO on Tuesday, maybe they were in jail and we just didn't know about it. I'm just being candid. So some people also just didn't get caught, and I think we have to keep that in perspective. And I'll just stop there because I know you have more questions.
Thank you. So this is for any one of you, or all of you folks also. What has helped you best in hiring? And what are the most critical changes that hiring professionals or business owners must make to hire more effectively?
What is that? What is the question again?
What has helped you best in hiring? And what are the most critical changes that hiring professionals or business owners must make to hire more effectively?
I think, I know she's with HR and I'm not, but what I look for is the quality and tone of the person that's putting the application in. I personally talk to every one of my volunteers and stuff like that, and you can tell by talking to them, just give them a little hint of what you want to know and they'll take over. And I think that's the biggest thing. Always look forward to finding a good spot in somebody, and I think most of the time it'll turn out.
Anybody else? So here's question number 8. Do you remember a specific experience of when you wished that you or your business had known something beforehand to make your hiring experience better? If you were to do it over, what would you change?
Come on, guys, don't make me answer. Tell a joke, okay. I can do that. Basically, to answer that question, you have to put yourself on the person that you're talking to or interviewing on the same level. Don't expect too much, don't expect not enough too. But I'll say in my experience with these kids, every single one of them are first class. And the main thing is support the person. This is a right to work state, and you can get rid of them or not take them if you like. But as far as I go, I don't think I would change any practice that I use right now. Just give them an opportunity.
Great. Bryan, any comment?
I mean, I can talk to the first question. The second question, I don't do a lot of the hiring, my job, but I think for the first question, with what has helped us with the hiring process is, you know, like I said, we don't turn anyone away, right? And just because if you're looking through an application, if it says something about, having a conviction on their record. Don't just throw it away immediately. Have a chance, sit down with that person, because you can tell a lot about a person when you're sitting in front of them, not just on a piece of paper. And you can get a pretty good feeling about who they are and what they do, and if they have a solid work ethic or not. So.
Thank you. So what made you decide as a business to specifically hire from these populations, and why do you continue that practice?
I personally do not do the hiring, so it is not easy for me to answer that question, but I can say that I do get the resumes and I do make recommendations, and what we try to do when we're hiring for the center itself is to consider people's life experience and how it can best help the population, because if you have been through this, then it's easier for you to help somebody get through this. So we try to utilize that. But yeah, I am not the hiring one like he said.
I got to start with you. For me, it started 20 years ago when the publisher at the newspaper I worked for actually asked me to hire someone who had a disability. He knew of this person for being in World War II with him, and he wanted us to help him. From that's when it started for me, where the light bulb went off that people do have their capabilities. So I started there. When you fast forward and have to move into Florida, I would say because I've seen the successes with the other two employers I worked with. And I can say though, when I brought the idea up to my current employer, the general manager was not sold on the idea. It did not take place the first year. I continued to have conversations, and then I actually went and developed a business case and gave him some data that at that time I was hoping was going to be true, because I wasn't that familiar with Volusia County, so I was only hoping that when I was saying, oh, we're going to have this return ratio on the turnover and we're going to do this, that it would come true. And fortunately, it actually did. And on several occasions now, because I've now been with that organization for 7 years, and even as recent as 2 weeks ago, he says, Jordan, I really do appreciate that you brought that idea and wanted us to do this, because I see how we have impacted lives. And like as one of our other panelists said, I have people now that it came in an entry-level job, they become supervisors, and we have one person who is a manager. And just seeing that change, and the people are forever grateful. But the first thing I say to anyone in those categories is I do not want them to look back in the rearview mirror, period. We have hired them for a job. They're there to do the work like everyone else. They do not have to share their story with anyone. Just do the work. And when we're walking down the hallways, we're not looking at them like, oh, he spent 7 years in prison. Like, that's just not in our minds at all. Giving them the reassurance, and I would say that's one thing, is giving them support once they come into your organization, that it is okay and you want them there, just being supportive. But it makes good business sense to just really answer your question. It makes good business sense.
So